Hello, welcome everyone. We're welcome to Neil and Doug Talk It Out. I don't know what the name of the show is, but we're gonna go with that. Doug, the Pirates have finally become a winning team today. The problems are solved.
Yeah, yeah.
Seriously,
Listen. I'm sorry for your loss, Neil. I'm sorry for your
yeah, I know
loss. I'm
that
sure
has
this
to be
is a
hard.
tough time. I'm going to respect your
It,
privacy during this difficult time. you know,
I haven't. I've been gotten the first time I've gotten out of bed all day. I haven't been able to recover from this news.
uh, you know. And here,
You
I think we should be giving away sandwiches, but so,
for the,
uh, but
I don't know. You don't give out sandwiches during times of great loss. Uh,
I don't know. It's
oh man, so Derek Shelton has officially been fired by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I don't know what I'm going to talk about for now after this because this is kind of half my personality. But
your whole bit's over now, right?
yeah,
you know, go Donnie
well,
Kelly.
it's crazy that this isn't even the biggest news of the day for me. The Pirates just managed to release this. Well, the Pope's being elected, and
But
so
yeah, I mean, yeah,
as a practicing Catholic, I'm just here running around like
you've
from
got an
Pope news
American
to Derek
Pope now,
Shelton news. It's a
right?
whiplash of emotions today.
Yeah,
How
no
are you
white
doing, Doug?
smoke coming out of PNC Park. That's right. you know,
Only black smoke.
yeah. Um,
How are you doing today, Doug?
First and foremost, Ben Cherington should be fired first.
Mm,
I'm glad that they fired Shelton. I do not see this as any kind of solution, any kind of answer to any problems. Um, Shelton, as you have pointed out many, many times, he does not have the players to succeed. I don't
mm,
think he did well with what he had. He didn't make the best of what he had. Um, and I think I've said to you many times, and I've said it on this podcast that I'm not sure how much power he had. So a lot of the things that I think he did wrong, I'm not sure that those strings weren't being pulled by Charrington and his army of analytics people.
mm.
So
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
mean,
celebrating Derek Shelton's firing to me seems very hollow in the fact that Ben Cherington's still here. That at this point, Ben
mm,
Cherington can still make a trade, which while I want trades to be made, I don't want him making the trade. That Ben Cherington can still make the
mm,
draft pick, and God forbid he drafts a hitter or something because he's shown no ability to acquire or develop hitters. So, um, the greater the bigger problem than Shelton is still in place, still in power. So it's a muted celebration. They needed to do something. The fan base, that we're out there with the torches and pitchforks. They needed to sort of acknowledge to us that yes, we realize this is not going the way we had planned and expected.
mm.
But like I said, it's putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. So, um,
Yeah,
you know, good luck, Donnie Kelly.
yeah. I mean, I have multiple thoughts because, obviously, I'm the big Shelton defender. But I think my stance the whole time has been like this is acceptable. And so, on one hand, I'm happy for Derek Shelton. I told you just before the show that he doesn't have to sit here and watch every second of Pirates baseball anymore. I think that's the biggest win out of anyone. Like he gets
Yeah.
to go home, he gets to retire, he gets to sit on his $1 million contract, and he doesn't have to look extremely pained to the media every night. And so, in
And
some
yeah, and
ways,
answer those
some ways you
questions.
have to, yeah. But in some ways, like obviously losing your job, and he's probably never getting a managerial job in baseball again, which is sad. But in some ways, he has to be relieved that he doesn't
Oh,
have to
I
manage
would think so.
anymore.
I mean, I like I said, how many ways can you answer those questions by saying nothing when you really want to say,
Mm.
look at this roster my general manager has provided me with, right? He's been a good
Yeah.
soldier. His credit, he has been a good soldier since day one.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would think, hey, I've got summer off. All right, yeah, because he will. You're right. I doubt he gets a MLB managing job again, but he'll be a bench coach somewhere. He'll be a hitting coach somewhere, which seems
Yeah.
kind of ironic. He'll be a AAA manager. I mean, he's going to work. He's a good dude, and all of that.
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely time to do something. You said it. It's like we've been expecting this. Um, I mean, it's really past due. But again, to me, and Cherington said as much that they're going to be held accountable together, is what he said in the off season, and so this doesn't
Mhm.
feel like that right now. If they're, I'm really hoping that soon we have an emergency podcast for the firing of Derek Shelton. And again, we're here to talk about Shelton, so I'll stop beating that horse. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, don't worry. We'll inevitably touch on the other parts of the organization, but I mean, I actually do agree that like, even though I don't think Shelton deserves to lose his job necessarily for like anything he's done, there does come a point in time where like you just have to make a change. And you know what's really bad, that we predicted this on Tuesday on the post game. Like we knew that like even if it ever got to this point where they're swept by the Cardinals, they're 14 games under 500. Like it has something has to change, and the manager is the easiest thing to change. And so
right.
yeah, like like I don't think it's Shelton's like deserved. I can very much easily sit here and say, well, something has to give, and in some ways, like you're kind of hoping for like a Mariner situation, like they fired Cervais. I actually forget how to
Yeah,
pronounce his name, but and
Scott Service. I don't know, Scott Service. Yeah,
yeah, if they fired him and they actually went on I don't think they made the playoffs, but they did go on a win streak like toward the end of the year when they fired him halfway through the season. So like that stuff can have an effect.
yeah.
Um, but I don't see it with this team, and so yeah,
No, the schedule
and
doesn't look good. I actually
no,
thought they might keep Shelton for another, week or two, or maybe through the month, just because the schedule, that's no great schedule to walk into if you're a new manager of this team. Um,
hmm
so yeah, but yeah, I mean, you don't know. I mean, again, the issues with this team and what we've seen lately is they look absolutely lifeless, right? There is
hmm
no enthusiasm, and part of the problem, and it's the reason that we sign guys like Pham and Frazier, is because the veteran leaders on this team, the actual veterans of this team, Reynolds, Kutch, Hayes, Keller, are all very mild mannered. They have the perfect personality for playing baseball every day. You don't get too high, you don't get too low. But there is nobody really on it with any kind of fire on this team. And so they bring in guys like Pham and Frazier to try to do that, but they can't play. They haven't been here long enough to sort of rally anybody. So that has to come from the manager or the coaching staff. And
hmm
like I said, it doesn't have to be the manager. It could be, could be a bench coach. It could be the outfield, whatever. But there seems that, like, this team doesn't have it looks like they have a lot of enthusiasm. That doesn't look like they're playing hard. It doesn't look like they're engaged. And then you add all the just the throwing to the wrong base, getting picked off. Oh my God, getting picked off second, picked off third, out at home, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the just defensive plays that make no sense. So yeah, it's sort of the first step in a process. Somebody has to go. They brought up
yeah,
they brought up a few guys and sent a few guys down but that did that, again, because we don't have anybody. Matt Gorski's not going to carry this team on his shoulders. I'm sorry. So Leo Peguero is not going to make a difference. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was like, all right, here's the sacrificial lamb. Poor Derek Shelton. He never had a
Yeah.
chance. But
Yeah, it was he really was never given a roster to compete with, or for me to really show like if what managers do, like how much of a change. Now I am gonna like zag a little bit on what you're saying, because I think I just don't agree with the idea the players aren't playing hard. Like the reason we look lifeless isn't because the players aren't playing hard; it's because we score 2 runs a game. Like I think a lot of the time we associate players not caring with bad play, and I think that's just kind of what we see, where like it's hard to look enthusiastic when you're getting beaten every single day. Like I have no doubt that every single player was trying their hardest. And fundamentals. Honestly, during this last losing streak, it wasn't even like bad fundamentals. They just had no life in the offense. And
no,
so like
I
I
mean,
feel
I
like
mean, I agree with
I
you
just feel
to a
like
point, right?
yeah,
But also, we have a lot of players who don't run out of the box. right? I mean, and it's not just a Cruz. I mean, it was McCutcheon the other day. It happens a lot on this team, and when you're a bad team, right? Like, and we recognize you as a bad team. We want to at least see hustle, right? We want to see like smart baseball. And I understand there is a difference between a bad player, but a bad baseball player can still throw to the right base. A baseball player can still not get picked off second and I mean, not run to third on a comeback and run from third to home on a comeback to the mound, that sort of thing. And so that does come down to me. And again, that's not necessarily lack of effort, but it just shows, the optics of it looks like they're not a well coached team. They're because they keep making the same mistakes.
Mhm.
And it's like is anyone going in and correcting this? And you know,
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Um, the Pirates have 27 errors this year, and that is actually top five in the league. They're tied with the Guardians and the White Sox. Here are some teams around them: Cubs with 21, Diamondbacks with 22, Brewers with 25, Athletics with 26, Red Sox with 31. So, like, New York Yankees 21, Reds 21, Giants 21, so on and so forth. So, like, not that many differences in terms of like errors compared. But you know what the difference is? Those teams have those errors and then they go and still win the baseball game.
right?
But what the Pirates have done, and what the I think something that's been really wrongly assumed to Shelton is that like these errors and stuff that happens on every team is just amplified by 50 because the team's not very good and they just don't win baseball games. So now you start focusing on those errors.
I
And I
agree with
think
that
that's
about
something where,
errors. I agree with that about errors. Actual
yeah.
E5, E3, that sort of thing. Where I disagree, and we do see it a lot of times with the other team. I mean, it seems to me that we get more runners picked off a base and thrown out on bases than any of the teams that we watch. That the opposing. And I mean, I've watched some of these teams we've played that are bad, that are trying to give the game to us, and of course we don't take it because we can't hit and we can't capitalize. But
Mhm.
I'm like I said, I'm not talking that a grounder between the legs of Frazier or something like that. I'm talking about these what appear to be mental errors. Throwing home when you should be hitting the cutoff man. That doesn't go in as an error. That's not shown as an error. It's just a
Mhm.
dumb baseball play. Picked off second. Bednar letting Tatis just walk to third base. Made no effort. Everybody in the park knew. Um, uh, both announcers. Bob Walk said he was going to go. I heard Kevin Young on the radio say he needs to throw over now. He could pick him off. He's going to go on this pitch. So, everybody knew except apparently Bednar or Bart or any of our coaches. Somebody couldn't have stopped and said, "Hey, man, you know, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about." I mean,
Yeah.
you're right. All the teams make errors, and then because we can't overcome them because we don't have a
Mhm.
lineup, we don't have the hitters. Certainly it's magnified, but those aren't the errors I'm talking about. I'm talking about just
No,
the
and that's
dumb
fair.
baseball.
Yeah, I think that it does happen more often around the league than we think, especially since we're in our little corners Pirates fans. But I would also say that you know, I just think they're bad baseball players.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that's what it really comes down to. So like yeah, fundamentals were not great under the Shelton Pirates. Whether you can probably criticize Shelton for like not benching people. I know like he used a story of the Brewers manager just benched Caleb Durbin and someone else. I'm forgetting the other guy
was it
for
Trios? I think no, Freelick, Sal Freelick. Yeah,
Freelick. Yeah, so he mentions those two guys for mistakes they played, and Shelton clearly was not that type of manager. For
right.
better or for worse, he did not see the value in benching players do the poor play, or like not poor play, but like for like making those mental errors. Um, so I'm sure a lot of players liked playing for him. I think that was pretty clear. Like Santana wanted to come back, Frazier wanted to come back and play mainly because probably the reason we offered him a deal, but like we traded Santana away and he still wanted to come back.
Right.
Josh Bell has talked about how he's wanted to come back, and the Pirates haven't offered him a deal. So I think there has to be some some sort of truth to the fact that players like playing under Shelton. And the
Oh,
veterans who
definitely.
come through here too. Now, if you want to assign that as a bad thing that people want to play for Shelton or a good thing, that I think you can go both directions there.
Right. I mean, do they want to play with him because, hey, it's so easy here. He doesn't ever yell at you. He doesn't ever correct you. He just pats you on the butt and says, "Good job." I mean, is it that or But early in his tenure, like I always thought the team was playing hard, right? And his first year, no, not the 2021, not the COVID year, but his
Yeah.
first year, very solid fundamentally in the field. They were a top 3 or 4 defense, and they were making the plays. And it's just stopped since then. I don't know, what happened, but I do remember watching the Braves broadcast or listening on the Braves radio 3 nights in a row, and each night they mentioned how Shelton had him out there for infield practice an hour before the game, and he was drilling. They said this wasn't any casual. I haven't heard that since, and it doesn't mean it hasn't occurred, but it certainly looked like it
I've
hasn't
seen it.
occurred.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
sorry, every team takes infield drills before
Yeah.
games. Like that's just how baseball works. Like,
Yeah, but not the way these guys were talking about. Like I said, the intensity of it,
okay,
what
that's
they were
fair.
doing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because again, I mean, they were very, like they were very focused on it, how it was different than what other teams are doing.
Yeah,
But
I think
they haven't said that any year since. So,
yeah, I really got to look at like the stats because maybe Josh Van Meter has just ruined my perception of the 21 Pirates. But all I remember is Josh Van Meter playing catcher, Rodolfo Castro sliding into first base with the phone in his pocket. Like,
yeah.
so I don't. And that was a long time ago, and I think I'm trying to block out how
Well, yeah,
bad
that
that
was, yeah. I
team
mean, that was
was.
the
But
same
like, I
year.
don't, I don't,
Yeah.
but
Van Meter
Castro
first
did get
base,
benched for
not
that.
touching the. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
he
Well,
was at
I think.
first.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
I'll take your word for it. You're probably right because
Yeah.
I don't remember enough
They
to
no,
really
they
know that
were
for
definitely
sure.
better defensively that year, 2021. Since then, we have not been a good defensive team, and again, that's more a product of bad players. I mean, I acknowledge that,
Mhm.
but I still think you can coach up bad players to a point. And I would think, in a sense, that it should be easier because like these guys are clinging to the 26th spot in the roster type thing. Like, hey, if you can't make it here, you're probably not going to make it with the Yankees. you know,
Yeah.
so,
Well, if we're also not recruiting guys, employing baseball players who can't self motivate themselves to do the right thing, like that is also a problem. And yeah, like partly that's on Sheldon for like not getting him that extra step, but like these are professional baseball players. They grinded their years through the minors. Like they should have that self discipline on
no,
their own, I
I
think.
agree. Chuck Noll used to say, if I have to motivate you, I would just as soon fire you, right? Like you should,
Yeah, exactly.
you should be self motivated, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's millions of dollars at stake. You should not be, you know, you should not be
Yeah,
half-assing anything, especially if you suck, right? I mean, it's one
exactly.
thing, it's one thing if you're the best player in the world or something. You're like, well, okay, he didn't run it out, but he's got 45
Yeah,
home runs and 150 RBIs, so we'll put up with some of it. But yeah, when you're hitting
yeah,
170 and not making the smart plays and not giving your best effort, there's a real problem.
yeah. I agree with that. So it's always really hard to tell how much is really up to the manager because MLB teams are just like that airtight about all of that. Like stuff doesn't really get out. You know, the fact that I don't know if you saw this, Rafael Devers is like openly questioning the Red Sox GM and the decisions they make today because
Oh,
they
I
asked him
didn't
to
see
move to
that. Yeah.
first base. Like that's unprecedented. So I don't think we'll ever really know just how much until like much later. Like kind of like in 2019, it took a couple of years for all the stuff about what was happening in the clubhouse to leak out about how Hurdle and the staff couldn't be in the same room as the players. Like I don't think it ever got that bad under Sheldon,
Right.
but the play wasn't good enough, and so yeah, hope this is a wake up call. But I will say I'm happy for another reason. You know, again, as Sheldon's biggest defender, and that is that clearly Cherington is on the hot seat at this point. If the manager goes going, that means not it is not all right up in the front office. Things are not going well, and that does make me happy a little bit that we don't have to necessarily worry that like nothing's going to give Sherrington another year. If things keep going this way, Sherrington should be shown the door, and that gives me some hope
Yeah, that's
because I
true.
don't.
Right. I mean, they lose the next 7. who you blame it on now, there, Ben? Right? I mean, it's you know, it might be that 5 through 9, a bunch of guys hitting 160. So yeah, I mean, right. If this result is the next step is that Ben Cherington is fired, then right, then I'll feel much more celebratory now. Firing Shelton doesn't really matter, and there's no argument for not firing him. Right? They've been terrible. They've been terrible for 6 years, 5.5 seasons now, or what have you.
Hmm.
There's no, he cannot make a case that why he should get to keep his job. Right? I mean, they're awful. They look awful while being awful, and so yes, he's got to go. The bigger issue to me still, and to me, it's a bigger issue than Nutting. I understand Nutting's a terrible owner. I understand he doesn't spend money, but there are other teams that have comparable payrolls to us that do have occasional success. And develop a hitter in 6 years. I mean, the Royals at least got Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
Right?
See,
Tampa
I might
turns out
zag, I
some
might
players.
zag from you there a little bit too, where like Nutting. I was going to save this to the end, but Shelton going and how where the team is entirely and completely on how Nutting has run this team since 2007. Sure, there are teams with comparable payrolls. Sure, I grant that. But Buster Olney reported something that said the Brewers have now spent $200 million more than the Pirates have over the last 7 years. Now, I'm no mathematician. I'm sure I'll have people angry at me that talk about their graphs, but Milwaukee's not that much bigger than Pittsburgh in terms of media. I know for a fact their revenue's not as much that much bigger. And so the fact that we're here at 6 years later, he's been owner since 2007. We've seen 4 winning seasons, 3 playoff appearances, 0 playoff series wins, just 1 wild card win. And there has been no introspection. There has been no change. There has been no change in demeanor. There has been no change in how he runs his business. There is no difference on how he hires people. He just happened to get lucky that he ran into a genius with Huntington, quite frankly. And
Yeah,
so
I mean, you would
through
think
Bob Nutting, sorry,
any
through Bob
businessman,
Nutting,
right? You
through
would
Bob
think
Nutting,
any
like,
businessman that had 2013, 14, and 15 as his most profitable seasons would say, "Oh," and I'm sure Bob Nutting was at the blackout game, the Cueto, when Cueto dropped the ball. That's all it would take for an average businessman to say, "Oh, they will support this team. Oh, if I give them a reason to come, people will come, Ray. People will come." I mean,
yeah,
you're right. So, I mean, I agree. He should have made changes. I still think in 6 seasons, with the low, you could have the lowest payroll every year. When you're drafting that high, you should have some hitters on this team by now. The
I
Dodgers, who
agree.
draft 20 some picks after us every year, hit on hitters. Hitters, pitchers, everything. Other teams do it. I 100% Nutting is a terrible, terrible owner, and I wish he'd sell the team today. But I still think I think Charrington's worse at his job. you know, um,
Yeah,
it,
I wouldn't go that. Let me put it this way: Nutting is the worst owner in baseball. Sherrington, if he's not the worst GM, is bottom two, bottom three. Maybe the Angel Perry from the Angels is worse. Maybe you can argue the Rockies GM is worse. Fine, but when you combine worst owner in baseball with arguably worst GM in baseball, this is where we start feeling bad for Derek Shelton because he was set up to fail from the very beginning. Because
yeah,
you're
it
right,
didn't stand a
six
chance.
years, but but what I would say to that is that if you don't think Shelton's a good manager, fine. You know what? Fine, I'll give it to you. There are things that you can question. He has his worst winning percentage, whatever you want to talk about. Sherrington's one of the worst GMs. It all goes back to who is hiring these people and who is allowing the decisions to be made inside the building, and that
That's
is
fair.
all on Bob Nutting.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm talking about his process hasn't changed. He's the guy who
Oh, yeah.
hired Littlefield. So he didn't hire Littlefield. So he kept Littlefield around.
Right.
He got Huntington. He almost fired Hunt. He was ready to pull the trigger on Huntington to fire him faster than he was with Shelton. Like Huntington had to go begging for his job after 2011.
Yeah.
Sherrington, I can't
I
imagine
mean,
has done
Huntington
anything like
had the
that.
job for quite a while. without showing
Yeah,
much, you know.
and yeah, and so like until ownership, regardless of investment, shows a commitment to this team, like nothing is going to change. We're just going to be here in another 4 years when the next manager is fired, talking about how he was let down, and that's a shame because the fans deserve better, we deserve
Well,
better, the players
I
deserve
mean,
better. Like
you're
in
absolutely
order to,
right. I mean, Travis Williams, Ben Cherington, and Shelton should not have started this season in these jobs, right? Bob Nutting should have made that change, probably earlier, but hey, if you did it in this offseason, you gave him 5 years. In 5 years, you got me nothing. And again, we saw it. We knew this team wasn't going to be good based on what they were doing in the offseason. So, and how much did he
Mhm.
limit them? Whatever. You took the job and you're a last place finish every year except once. Right. The Travis Williams saying, gee, I don't care if we win or lose as long as they have a good pretzel, the stupid, just nobody there. None of those three showing any kind of sense of urgency, right? They all should be gone. I mean, Nutting
Yeah.
again. I'll stress Nutting is a problem, but Charrington to me has got to go. He's got, he needed to go yesterday. So right, it's not like I said. I don't expect any kind of turnaround. I don't think Donnie Kelly is going to light a fire. I mean, it doesn't matter how motivated he gets them. I mean, they're not very good.
Well, and you know what the most offensive part of all the stuff that's come out today, like with the statements and the press conference and everything, is a statement from Bob Nutting because Shelton. This is their sense of urgency move, which is fair because I think I saw it's like no, that Shelton is not the fastest fired manager in MLB history, but he's the second fastest. Like managers don't get fired this quickly. So in a way, this was a sense of urgency. However, when Bob Nutting goes on talking about how we need to act with a sense of urgency,
Right.
that is just offensive because
Oh yeah,
Bob
yeah.
does not have an urgent bone in his body. If
Right.
he did, we wouldn't be in this position. Like, and so like that is what is so infuriating to me about this whole situation is that like yes, Shelton, it was his time, like and and especially when the new GM came in, Shelton would have been gone anyway because general managers get to choose their managers, and that's how it works. But like, you don't get to sit here and complain and leak to the media about how angry you are, how mad you are about how the Pirates are playing, or how Ben Cherington is doing his job, or how Derek Shelton is doing his job when you don't invest.
Right.
Like,
Well,
like this is the whole like thing that gets me going. Is like again, like we're playing with people's lives here, and maybe Derek Shelton like wanted to continue being an MLB engineer, and Bob Nutting has made sure that he's never getting another job again. And it's stuff, it's small stuff like that. Like it's really dumb, and Bob Nutting's at the center of this. So you know, I'm. It's so frustrating.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, so we made this early and bold move, and I don't expect it to result in much. Um,
No,
Again, it's easy to see why and understand why Shelton was fired, but it's hard. Like you said, to listen to the owner say, talk about urgency and how nobody's happy that the way this season has gone. Well, there are things you can do besides fire the manager, right?
yeah,
You could tell your general manager, and quite frankly, I don't want making trades, but you could say, hey, go acquire somebody. I'm going to give you, 10 million more dollars or something. Acquire somebody with a salary. I approve it. That sort of thing. Get an actual bona fide hitter, a guy that's hitting now. Not coming off 2 seasons ago of having a decent. Get a real actual baseball player to play left field, maybe. Um, uh, get someone to platoon with Horowitz at first base. Whatever. There's just stop running out the Canarios and the Valdezes and the Phams and the Fraziers, that sort of thing. make a move, Ben. You could do it. You've got my permission. You've got my blessing. And yes, you can increase payroll, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's more than you can do than make sure that Cleveland Guardian fans get a Paul Skeens bobblehead. The things that seem to outrage him are just.
You got all the credit for that thing. When I said it a day earlier, a day of, and no one watched that show, so no one cared.
Yeah.
You know,
So,
so poor. So Derek Shelton's legacy here is not going to be a positive one.
no.
It's just not, even as his biggest defender. Like you can't go through 5 losing seasons and have a city have a positive image of you,
Mm.
which is a shame. Because again, like I think he seems like a really nice guy. Like I think he really did care for his players. I'll tell you like the one anecdote. I think that one really turned me on Shelton is like that whole like Cam VO situation. Like the fact that he went to the media and basically like said like he was in tears, like was like losing sleep over it. Like that really showed to me like on a team that was garbage, was losing 100 games that year, that like he really did care for his players. And so that's the Derek Shelton I'm going to take with me
Yeah,
because
I agree.
a lot of
He's had a great relationship with his players. They do like him, and I mean, I think they like him for the right reasons. He does care about them. He wants the best for them. I do.
yeah.
Again, I'm I've come to bury him, not to praise him, I suppose. But
It's
borrow
time to
from.
bury again.
But
As Derek Shelton's biggest defender, it was time. It's time to
yeah,
bury him. Like,
but yeah,
now
you
the
had
rest
to
of the
show
front office has to go
us.
with them.
Yeah, I mean, you had to show us as the organization needed to show us that, like, you know, okay, we realize this is really bad, and so we're making a change. Now, again, hopefully, to me by the end of the weekend, I'm hoping Cherington's gone, but that's probably unlikely. But like you
Yeah,
said, if it leads to that, then to me it's totally worth it. So yeah, good luck, Godspeed, Derek Shelton. Yeah, I mean, you've got a terrible, terrible, career record, but I'm sure you're going to land on your feet. Good luck, Donnie Kelly. The hometown kid
he's gonna
does
need
well.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good luck, because yeah, you don't have a roster, buddy. So
Yeah,
I don't know, I don't know what you can do with this.
yeah. And you know what the worst part is for me, at least, is that the Pirates are like what 7 games on a losing streak. They're due for a couple wins,
Right.
which so like
It would be kind of funny if like they won the next
it's gonna
five.
be so bad. Like they're gonna go out and like win the first 2 games of the series,
Sweep the
and oh my
Braves.
gosh, the comments like Ryan and Cody are gonna be all over me. Like, oh man, it's gonna be
Oh yeah,
awful.
golly, you're going to be in trouble, Paul. Paul Oles is coming for you. What the worst part about this season for me is, as you know, I'm headed up to Pittsburgh in about a week or two to spend the rest of the summer and early fall. I wanted to go to a bunch of games. I was, I didn't think we were going to be any kind of winning team, but I thought we were going to win 76 games again, or and that we might hang around a little to the end and be engaged. And it's just like, we're having one of the worst seasons we've had under this regime, and that's saying something.
Yeah, nope. And like again, back like with Shelton, like you can't. It's not his fault, but it is understandable that when you're the same record as you were in 2020 with the rebuild, it's understandable why you're shown the door. And you know, Derek Shelton and Ben Cherington has blood on his hands in that regard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, Ben Cherington's
it's
a
a shame.
co-conspirator here, right? He's, that's like I said, he should be facing the same charges there,
I was say,
as
yeah,
Shelton
like,
is.
it's just the assassination of Julius Caesar right now with Bob and Ben just sticking the knife in Caesar's back. Like
Right.
that's what it feels like right now.
Oh, we've got all kind of Caesar references in this show. My goodness,
Yeah.
that's what you get when you get
You're
Doug
talking
and
about
Neil. You get some
I mean,
Shakespearean stuff going on. So right, because it is a
I mean,
tragedy.
yeah, but it is the tragedy of Derek Shelton. Yeah, I mean, like we got a history major here. I don't know if you're a history major. I could see you being a history major, but
I've dabbled a little. Yeah.
yes, but anyway, I think we should probably wrap this up. Derek Shelton, one final salute. I'll always be your strongest soldier. Thank you for your years of service.
Best of luck to you, Derek Shelton. I do.
Godspeed, Caden.
I think it'd be hilarious if he went and became, ended up managing another team in the division or something, and just came back and haunted us.
I'm going to become a fan of the new team. Whatever Derek Shelton manages, that's going to be.
But
we'll watch out Louis with bats.
Yeah. It was time for a change for sure. Hopefully it sparks something. It just.
That's the hope. That's the best thing that can come out.
Right.
Of this. It's not going to change anything because we're too far gone for the season to be salvaged.
Oh yeah.
But hopefully the Don Kelly at the helm sparks a change.
Yeah.
Do we agree too much today, Doug?
Yeah, I did. I know. I think we were expecting more conflict, but I mean, neither one of us has a real, the polarizing position. Like you could not spend 30 minutes here saying how great Derek Shelton was, and I couldn't spend 30 minutes telling you it was all Shelton's fault. So I mean, the truth, is there in the middle. We all agree it's Ben Cherington's fault and Bob Nutting's fault. So yeah, I mean, Shelton's just a casualty of all this. It was time, but
yeah, and I can't defend. I'm perfectly fine with firing a guy when it's this bad, So so maybe we didn't give it those blood sports. I'm sure people will tell us in the comments, but I think I've basically gotten you and Tyler on my side on this one in the past week. So in my eyes, I've won.
There you go. You're a winner. You're a winner.
No, I'm a loser.
Damn millennials. Right. Get your orange slices and we'll call it a night.
Well, we're going to get out of here.
All right. Make sure that you watch NS. If you haven't watched it live, make sure you watch NS9 Live. That will be airing here in a few minutes, but you'll have seen this later. Go back and watch the Emergency Podcast with Donardo and Cody. And we'll be here tomorrow night. I'll be here tomorrow night with a post game.
Thankfully, I will not be.
Hopefully, yeah, lucky you. Hopefully
you get to get us sandwiches.
Yeah, so right now my life is worse than Derek Shelton's because he's got $1 million and he does not have to watch the game tomorrow, and I do. So, and I make slightly less here than $1 million.
Dude, Derek Shelton's not going to be watching baseball for 6 months after this. I'd need a detox too.
Oh yeah, right. He is clearly the guy that needs to go to an island somewhere and unplug the phone and just
Just spend time with your wife, man. You've earned it.
Don't get on Twitter, Derek Shelton. That's all. It won't be kind.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thank you guys.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Always enjoy getting to talk a little baseball with Neil. And
that was a pleasure, Doug.
I mean, I guess this is a good thing, right? I mean, it's something we've been asking for. It's just
speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, again, I was asking for the firing of Shelton and Cherington. And Travis. So
you're halfway there, Doug.
Right. I mean, it's I got the Red Ryder BB gun, but I didn't, I didn't get any BB, so it's just not that great. All right.
No flu. Don't shoot your eye out. But have a good night, everyone.
Let's go Bucs.
Yeah, let's go Bucs.
All right, that wraps up this episode of North Shore 9. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whether you're listening on the podcast or catching us on YouTube, if you enjoyed the show, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps us grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, a quick review goes a long way in helping others find the show. Plus, be sure to tell a friend about us. There's always room for more here in the NS9 community. And for those looking to support us a little more, consider joining our Patreon, become an MVP member, and get exclusive perks while helping us continue to bring you more of the Pirates content you love. Thanks again for all your support, and let's go Bucs.